Greetings and salutations, viewers. Welcome to another episode of Game Break. I am Charles, coming to you today with World and Economica, Episode 2, Part 10-ish, I believe, this time round. We're getting up there. We're almost at the double digits. Not quite, but almost. Last time round, we had some fun conversations, and we seem to be getting a solid understanding of just what to expect out of this challenge and what we have to work with. Seems like Chris has actually been doing some solid work using Hagana's program, so things are looking pretty hopeful. How about we dive back in using the weird quick load feature and see where things go from here. I spent most of my time on my days off in my dorm room going over my classes and catching up on reading. The moon moved at 6 times the speed of Terra. With my body like this and my lack of money, I was certainly in the way. So, while I ate breakfast, I finished up my work for the college, whose campus I've never set foot, then accessed the library on my terminal and downloaded The Wisdom of Humanity, while I took a seat near the window and read until noon. After that, I ate lunch, then took a nap, read, or gazed outside. Given the poor housing situation on the lunar surface, the dorm lent out to me by the public office wasn't great, but I didn't hate the view from my room. There was a large waterway outside my window. Surrounding both sides of the meanders were shabby buildings and houses, giving it the appearance of a mountain stream. So that's your pad. For a dorm room, that's actually not that bad. You have space for a solid-sized fridge, a little bigger than the mini fridge I used to have. Space for a flat screen, clever putting it up there. Not too many books on your shelf. I know it's all digital on the moon, but you can't flesh that out a bit. The space above the water was open all the same, making me feel as if I could just soar through it. There was a neighborhood ferryman with a gondola-like ship using the waterway as a transportation route, taking people and luggage back and forth. I rested my elbow on the windowsill, chin in my palm, gazing down on the lives of the lower class of the lunar surface. What I thought about wasn't my school subjects or anything like that. What filled my mind was yesterday, me staying late into the night speaking with Chris, only finally leaving after being kicked out by Ryza. Probability theory, differential calculus, number theory, also arithmetic, which anyone could do. That was basically all the tools Chris used, all of which could be summed up in a textbook of moderate difficulty. Yet Chris was able to piece those together to further improve Hagana's programming, which was based off of my decision-making in mathematical formulas. You could say that the original data was... Oh, it jumped. When I told her how impressed I was that she was able to replicate my speculations without ever conversing with me, she slumped forward, putting her hands on her knees like she was holding back from going to the bathroom, and smiled. Seems she had seen a lot of data. Seems she had seen it over and over. She'd concluded that it was difficult trying to find the patterns amongst those numbers that conformed to the market trends, flickering seemingly randomly, like white noise. Contrary to her usual anxious nature, her phrases were assertive, and the clauses were quite systematic. She appeared like a well-oiled machine in motion. And that machine was pulling in a vast amount of change with unparalleled accuracy from the market. Honestly, I found it refreshing. I feared that, as Hagana's program advanced in accuracy, I would then no longer be necessary. Now Chris's program realized my fears. Using my judgment as a basis, continuously searching for information related to the stocks and market, able to process thousands of brand analyses in the blink of an eye. Its response time was 1/10 of a second. able to process more than 1,000 trades simultaneously, without fear, exhaustion, or boredom. With a steady heart, I gazed down at the flowing river and thought, if that's the case, then soon there will be nothing for me to do. After all, everything I could do was being done by Chris's program at the pinnacle of perfection. It was like for the 4 years I slumbered, there was another perfect me active. I couldn't be awake 24 hours a day, nor is there anything I could do with mathematics which surpasses Chris's mastery. Yet, I didn't have that fear or frustration I held when Hagana was developing the program. I wondered why myself, but I didn't understand. Thinking about it rationally, the improvements made by Chris's program meant that I'd surpassed myself as I was 4 years ago. I didn't think it was possible for me to do so as I am now, but it made me feel rather optimistic. Or maybe it was because I slept for 4 years straight and I was still half asleep. That could do it. But that didn't sit well with me either, and all it did was irritate me. It was probably because I wasn't making my own money. After staring out the scenery from within my room for a while, I gently grabbed my coat and stood up. Chris said that the office was open even on Saturdays. If I left myself there, then I might be able to recall that tension from my past. As I thought about that, simultaneously noting that it had been a while since I'd felt like cringing while thinking about such things, I put my lodgings behind me. Adventure time! Cars. They'd become synonymous with high-end luxury, much like marble floors. Yet, as the lunar surface continually expanded, what we were left with were either boats on the waterways or rail cars. I could understand why tourists were surprised at it being like their own cities a century prior, because I'd seen similar scenery in movies. Thus, my mode of transportation shifted from waterway to rail car, then back to waterway, then to the main Newton City train, and then ended with me on foot. Finally, I boarded an elevator, descending to my secret base as though delving into the center of the moon. Even though it was Saturday, everyone besides Eleanor was there. Oh boy. Good morning! The first to greet me was Marco as he was cleaning the front door. Seeing him here cleaning so fervently early in the morning instead of spending his day off from school with his friends made me feel that he really was part of this industry. Or he just really loved Eleanor. Morning. Good morning. After returning Legoff's starchy greeting, I shrugged at Chris as she appeared a little bashful. I leaned on my cane towards the desk that was probably mine, since it was straightened up quite nicely. Then I threw over these words to Marco, who was across from me. The lady of the house. When I did, Legoff, with the only desk at the window away from the rest, responded as if to rebuke me. Madame is currently out. I see. Seems he wasn't the type who couldn't rise from his canopy bed because of low blood pressure. Do you have a matter that needs attending to? One business-related matter. Allow me, then. How much capital will I be in charge of handling? Spoken just as they'd expected me to. I already have a message from Madam. 300,000 moons. A seventh of Chris's. It wasn't the same amount used to gauge the viability of a program using past market data, so I felt it was a fair amount. It was frightening that I felt no strong emotions and only thought, 300,000 moons. I guessed if it wasn't an amount that felt like it was my own flesh and blood, then I wouldn't feel that intensity like I did back then. When you're able to show profits, then it'll be raised gradually. Anything else? This is quite a personal question, actually. If it concerns Madam's private life, then I cannot answer. No, I was wondering what kind of investing Eleanor does.
Madame does not invest.
What?
However, she is in a daily struggle to expand this institution. What those affairs entail does not please Madame, so I shall not comment thereon. As well, both Chris and Marco are aware of this and feel the same. If you must know, then please ask Madame directly.
When I turned my gaze to Chris and Marco, they both lowered their heads as though apologetic for how things were. Understood. Then, would this then be my desk?
Yes, please set your own terminal password.
Marco answered, so I nodded as I took my seat.
Come on.
Also, will the trade details be reported daily or weekly? Legoff answered this question.
All company trade transactions shall be done on these terminals, and the company is not responsible for any investing you do with your own money on your own time. Thus, while your work attendance is at your own discretion, you are required to be here to perform transactions. Naturally, only in cases such as Miss Chris and her fully automatic trading system is there an exception.
Meaning the investing data can be seen whenever.
Does this displease you?
This was spoken with an intimidating air, but I just shrugged my shoulders slightly. No, I'm rather relieved that when a catastrophic mistake occurs, it doesn't end up all falling on one person.
I see. By which you mean you've already experienced that sort of catastrophic mistake.
Yeah. It was a blunder that a single person couldn't handle on his own. I could tell Chris was looking worriedly at my direction when I answered. I could glance at her and tilt my head a bit easily, though. I feel that it's more of a plus to be able to share the blame than hogging all the glory. Success is difficult after all, and failure is too easy.
It appears I don't need to argue this point. Wonderful.
His face was stern and serious, but this was probably Legoff's way of joking. As I turned on the terminal, I spoke briefly. Risk and return.
An everlasting problem.
As I glanced at Legoff, I got the feeling that this would end up being quite an entertaining workplace. Noon came and Legoff ordered Chinese. Marco prepared the tableware and everyone ate from large plates. Afterwards, Chris and Marco washed the tableware in the shared kitchenette outside our office. They returned with a set of black tea and coffee on a tray. Legoff measured out the tea at his desk and poured in hot water, using his pocket watch to gauge the time. Marco and Chris took coffee, Chris with sugar, Marco with both milk and sugar. Marco appeared to be doing homework as he took sips. Chris appeared to be looking at something college-related on her terminal as he tossed homework questions over to her. I had been thinking about my investing methods during all this, but it felt like I was going to forget that I was amidst an ambitious collection of moneymakers on Schrödinger Street. Even someone other than Chris would want to pop in on days off if they could make money in such an idyllically calm and peaceful place. However, the mood in this place was the exact opposite of what I was seeking. I looked through Chris's data and market data, trying to search within myself and give shape to that feeling of unrest, but all I could create were yawns. When the afternoon rolled around, Legoff and Marco began doing even more work. From what I could overhear of his phone conversations, Legoff was trying to persuade some investment bank to subcontract out to us, saying that if they were to move a large volume of stock to sell, we'd be able to sell them cheaply. Marco was making calls to pay for our office furnishings, as well as sales promotions for real estate if they wanted to move their office. Anyway, they seem to have been mostly promotional, and I thought offhandedly that the lunar surface really was in a rolling boil. Compared to the norm 4 years ago, there was an immense number of stocks rapidly swelling, even within what I glanced over. Here and there were ones that doubled in a few months, and at the extremes there were some that had tripled or quadrupled within a month. I really couldn't even say in good faith that these companies' finances were stable either, and could only see their investing as acts of insanity. There were quite a few companies that basically looked like they were saying, "We'll pay you, so please sell our goods." When you looked at any of those companies' homepages, they were, without exception, standing strong, audaciously stating they were Lords of the Moon, defying conventional Terran wisdom. They'd say they were applying brand new, never-before-seen-on-Terra transit technologies efficiently to dramatically improve, or stuff like how there were a number of architects who would need to be given special permission to use our patented products to correspond to the rapid influx of buildings being built. Actually, quite a few of those big-talking companies had the success to back it up, and it appeared they would be succeeding from here on out. What was frustrating was the normally unthinkable amount of money they were borrowing, which they were sinking into advertisement and corporate expansion. I understood full well that you must take the risk for returns. In that sense, you could say they were right. But my negative response to this risk, which I could only see as recklessness, made me think I must be getting old. Or was it just that I was stained with feelings of failure? The phone rang out occasionally with Legoff or Marco taking it. Chris remained glued to her display, sometimes looking down at the terminal in her hand, solving some sort of formula. I'd bet none of them felt there was anything strange with the state of the market, being as they were inside it. It felt like I was the only one not moving at the same speed, and it left me with a sensation similar to isolation. One of my few reliefs was that when I used Chris's program to test any of the rapidly growing brands, it wasn't able to make use of them efficiently. Meaning that even the forceful predictions I made 4 years ago, before abandoning the market, were evading such companies and moving straight ahead. Yet the stock prices were breaking through the lunar dome at a fever pitch. What did Chris think about this? Thinking that, I had reconsidered. No. Rather, I was reconsidering the old me that had been used as the basis for Chris's program. Are we gonna have to rekajigger the entire system? I pulled my head out of that inorganic ocean of data when the 5 p.m. bell chimed the end of work, along with the rest of the investing group, who were here even though it was Saturday. Whenever I delved into the data ocean long ago, I remained submerged until exhausted, but it wasn't like that. I discovered nothing, even when I delved deeper. Giving a small sigh, I tapped Chris's shoulder. She didn't seem to notice the chime at all. When you go back, would you mind? Huh? Chris looked startled, and I said that to her. I want to go look around Newton City a bit. Would you go out with me? Chris nodded without hesitation and scrambled to prepare to head out. The lunar capital of Newton City, with its skyscrapers soaring high, was the heart, while quieter residential areas surrounded it in White City. Even farther out was the outer area, called the Outer District, which was divided into divisions 1 through 6. The wealth and influence of the lunar surface was centralized in Newton City, so the further out you went, the farther apart wealth and the populace grew. Some of the poorest districts were heavily rusted and weren't repainted, thus they were called Red Valley. However, recently the cycles of redevelopment had been washing over the poor districts, flushing them out, so they weren't even called Red Valley anymore. Instead, those chased out from redevelopment naturally headed to cheaper and cheaper lands. Thus, after gathering in one area, they then dispersed to other areas, one after the other like billiard balls. The news called them housing refugees, and it wouldn't be wrong to say they'd lost their homes because of economic strife. Even at that government branch office, people chased out of their houses by even more devilish means than we were 4 years ago, gathered there seeking free legal counsel if anything could be done about it. This was the true face of the lunar surface, which was said to be experiencing unprecedented prosperity compared to all of the Terra's human history. I felt those cold feelings, but I was thinking I may just be too pessimistic from spending an entire day staring at the stock market. Just as people changed, so did the market. So both myself from 4 years ago and the me which had been slumbering for those last 4 years may be wrong. I came to the heart of Newton City because I wanted to check. A lot of people around here, as usual.
There are an estimated 1 million transfer passengers here daily. The total number doesn't compare to major metropolitan areas on Terra, but we're ahead in area population density because both the upper and lower levels are like this.
Jam-packed wouldn't be an apt description, but it was crowded enough that you could graze shoulders with others, so it was rather like a viscous fluid advancing within the station. Of course, I couldn't keep up with the speed of the others around me, so I felt like I was a foreign object sitting in the middle of that fluid. I was still leading the way regardless, and not just because Chris had a terrible sense of direction. She also seemed bad at reading the movements of others, and I've seen her run into and step on other people's feet a lot. Oh dear. Couldn't you take up a more mathematically efficient way of walking? I said this as we took a breather when we reached one of the corners of the premises, which acted like a small air pocket in this sea of people. Chris adjusted her shoulder bag, which looked like it was about to slip off, and took off her body heat-fogged glasses and cleaned them with her droopy sleeve.
To solve an n-body problem, there are limits on computations, so I would need a quantum computer.
But other people are making their way through without getting tangled up.
When there are a lot of people, I get mixed up.
I'm not criticizing you. I pushed up the corners of my mouth and made it into the shape of a smile. Just picking on you.
Ugh.
Chris moaned and glared, saying, "I'm going," and started off walking. My sight went above the heads of the people as I chased after Chris. For those last 4 years, I'd always been staring at the ground. That alone meant the advertisements before me were new. Quite a few energy conservation advertisements.
Huh?
Quite a few energy conversation ads. A little unexpected. It was the symbol for energy with a red traffic sign indicating no passage painted on top of it, then the words "end waste." The words moon and conserve just didn't fit well together.
Oh, that's not about conservation.
We exited the station ticket gate. The tide of people seemed to have died down since we had been in the corridor of the terminal station building for a while. Chris explained it to me, walking next to me on the same side as my cane.
It's an advertisement for energy stocks.
I looked at the advertisements once again, and then I looked at Chris in disbelief, and she laughed happily.
It's to take part in personal electricity trading, buying it cheaply at the right time to make energy bills cheaper. The advertisements around here are all by Avalon.
So that's what it means.
The main source of electricity on the moon is solar generation, so the price and amount are fixed, but the demand is variable. Also, the entire city divides the electricity quite finely to avoid the entire city losing power. Thus, abiding by the rules of supply and demand, the prices vary locally at places. They say that if the prices vary, then a way of investing will arise.
Fair enough. She got so flustered when speaking normally, but she could speak smoothly when it was stuff that sounds like it was written in a textbook. That is why she didn't seem cold or nasty, even though she was so frighteningly intelligent. I see. Next to it, a movie ad?
The one with the engine? Nah, they finished the rail and that's going to be running on the lower level below the bottom of this station soon. A tram running under Newton City.
Marco would really love that.
It's because there's a lot of immigrants coming in and lots of people stay here for long periods of time. Recently, classic Terra culture has been becoming popular. Even Ryza said she wants a kotatsu.
Kotatsu? I had one at my parents' house. They're nice.
I believe in Japan they offer oranges to the kotatsu, right?
It didn't seem like she was joking when she said that. Yeah, that's right. And in the summer they offer grapefruits.
Oh, but a kotatsu in summer?
It was so much fun picking on a genius who skipped grades and was attending Lunar City University. There are a lot more investment banking advertisements than there used to be.
There's a big boom right now, after all.
Chris said that nonchalantly. With a similar amount of indifference, I asked, "So, a bubble?"
Bubble?
She had such a puzzled look on her face that looked like she was about to ask, "You mean gum?" Then, when she realized I was talking about the market, she showed her usually troubled-looking smile.
It's an actual substance, so it's not a bubble.
I don't think that the tulip bulbs from that famous Dutch tulip bubble were hologram files, though.
Ugh.
Chris's lips bent slightly and she looked off to the side as she pondered. When Chris pondered something, she had this type of subtle charm about her that was both solemn and innocent.
Corporations are earning a lot of money every year in the Lunar City, and there's a constant increasing stream of immigrants and tourists. Money earned on Terra is invested into the moon's infrastructure, where buildings and houses are constantly being erected. So there's now even a third city completed, and a fourth and fifth being planned. Certainly, the baseless enthusiasms that occurred on Terra last century really ended up being a baseless made-up commotion, but the moon isn't like that.
This baseless enthusiasm she spoke about was caused by a legendary central banker on Terra, and described the word bubble perfectly. At that time, it was an unprecedented IT bubble that happened, when there were leaps and bounds made in computer and communications technology. The age of South Sea Company's fly-by-night outfit, which turned out to be a flat-out fraudulent corporation, thus becoming the origin of the word bubble. It even fooled Isaac Newton and left him broke. The stock of this fraudulent corporation constantly set new record highs. Right at the end, it and all the wealth vanished with a pop. The amount was said to be equal to 3 to 4 trillion US dollars at the time. It was all just an enthusiastic delusion of grandeur that information technology would renew the entire world. Also, although humanity had reached the moon, Terra hadn't changed all that much.
Look, there are even advertisements for attracting people to live in houses in the new cities. The houses in new cities aren't a fraud.
That's true.
Also, the lunar surface can start off with new technology that can't be implemented well on Terra because this is untouched land. Even the advanced countries on Terra are still erecting power cables and communicating via landlines. So there are many places with barbaric civilizations.
Chris shrugged her shoulders, saying, "It's just so inefficient. A few hours ago, I read an advertisement much like that on a corporate webpage."
That's how the moon is able to progress at a much more efficient pace than anywhere on Terra. Also, the economic growth you can see right before you is incredible. and not the same as just the stock market.
Chris was somewhat skilled at making long speeches without ever stuttering. Or maybe she was just engrossed in the contents of what she said. That undoubting face believed advances on the moon would connect humanity to the future.
And I think we're going to have to pause things there, because we are unfortunately out of time. So we are going to have to find out just what they do at the Spice Closet, or Alexander Tail, or World Classic, I think the one on the right says. Whatever they end up doing at what looks like a mall. We'll have to check that out next time. Hopefully they find answers to what they're seeking. But until then, as always, thank you for joining us. We hope you're having fun with this game and overall series. By all means, check us out next week, on Friday. And I will see you all next time, so go be creative. Go play some games, go enjoy some stories, go create stories of your own, and share them with us, so we can all have some fun. And I'll see you all next week.